Hi friends, welcome to my channel. So today in this video we are going to see how you can configure high availability with PFsense OPNsense Firewall. So let's get started. Alright, so this is my first firewall, which is PFsense 2, and this is my second firewall, which is PFsense 3. And before starting, I will show you the diagram here. So this is my firewall 1, which is PFsense 2, and this is my second firewall, which is PFsense 3. And there is a link that is connecting these firewall directly, which is called sync. I just named it as sync. It is a normal Ethernet cable connecting to firewall. And then upstream, I have a switch, and then this connects to my ISP. This is my WAN interface. And downstream, I again have a switch. And my network is here. You can see my system. So this one is VLAN. I just named it as VLAN 1. Okay. So there are other interfaces as well. So this is the setup. So what we are going to do here is that we are going to configure the high availability between PFsense 2 and PFsense 3. And the connection is pretty simple. I have 4 interfaces. One is the WAN on both the PFsense, other one is the downstream VLAN 1, and the fourth one is sync. It is a normal Ethernet cable. I just named it as sync. It is a L3 link, point to point. And then the third interface is VLAN 2. I just named it as VLAN 2. So this is the setup. So let's get back to our firewall. So this is the firewall 2. You can see here WAN interface 192.168.0.129, which is this one. This is .30. In the similar way, this is 14 range. This 29, and in the same way, this is .30. So right now, okay, and the VLAN 2 I guess is not configured yet, but then we can try this while doing the setup. And then the sync interface is configured, and the interface is having the IP address in the range 33.33.33.2, and then 33.33.33.3. So this is the sync interface IP address. So now let's get back to our firewall. You can see here 29, 129. VLAN 2 is not configured, so we can configure this and then sync interface. Let's try to configure the VLAN 2 as well. So now you can see here all the interfaces are configured, and this is going to be the interface used for the high availability synchronization purpose. The synchronization can be of many types. For example, the interface configuration or the device configuration synchronization and the other synchronization. I will later cover all those stuffs. So now we are done with the interface configuration. So you'll have to go to system, high availability. I think I already have the configuration, so you just have to click on this. So it is going to synchronize all the information, all the real-time objects, RTOs, across the firewalls that is in the cluster. So here you will have to select the interface that you want to use for the synchronization purpose. In my case, I have used it as sync because my interface assignment, you can see here, I have given the description as sync. So this is a normal Ethernet link. And then I have given the peer IPS 33.33.33.2. You can see here the peer IP is 33.33.33.2. I guess this is 3. So this is the peer IP. So I'm going to add this. As 3. So this is going to be 2. Okay, so the first section here, you'll have to click on this, select this option. Okay, and then select the interface and then tell what is the peer IP of the firewall, which is the other firewall. Once done, you'll have to jump to the second section. So this section is only for the firewall, which is going to be the master. You don't have to do this configuration on the slave machine, which is this one. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to update the information. So here you'll have to put the own firewall IP, which is this. So this is dot two. So the remote system admin name you will have to put here. In this case is this one, the username, and you will have to choose. Okay, this is the password for this system. So I've given a password for this system, username and password. So you can see here, you will have to enter the web configurator username of the system entered for the configuration synchronization. So you don't have to do this on the slave machine. So if you click on this, it is going to synchronize the admin account and auto update sync password. So we don't want that. We want each device to be manually, managed. So you can click on toggle all to select all the options. Well, these are the options that will be synchronized across the cluster members. So you can see these are the information that will be synchronized between these two firewall in our case. Once done, you can click on save and then go to the second firewall, high availability, click here, sync, and then you will have to put the peer IP, which is going to be .2. Here in our case is this, and then you don't have to put this information. And then you will have to go to firewall rule sync to. You will have to allow, this is for the web authenticator that we were talking about in high availability section. So you will have to have the access here. So that is the reason why I've created a rule here for this interface to have the web access. And then the later rule was created for the synchronization purpose. So there is a exchange that will be going on between these two firewall using the sync interfaces. So I have allowed everything. So if you want, you can restrict this by using the source IP and the destination IP, but I have allowed everything from this interface to this interface and from this interface. The same goes here. It's pretty much similar in terms of configuration. And then once you're done, you'll have to create the virtual IPs. Like in my case, I've already created this. So I guess, yeah, this is for my WAN. I'll show the configuration. You'll have to select this. This is a protocol that is used for high availability, which will then allow you to have a floating IP on the interfaces here in our case, WAN interfaces. So each interface is already having an IP, but then once you have created a virtual IP, that IP is going to be floating between these two firewalls. Whoever will be the master will have the IP address of the virtual configuration what you have here. So you'll have to click on this, select the WAN interface, single address, and then you'll have to type the address. So this 131 is going to be the floating IP 131. Whoever will become the master will be then using this 131 for the outgoing traffic, for netting purpose, and for some for the other purpose, maybe for managing the firewall as well. I'll show you in the end how we can do that. So you'll have to put the IP address, and then you'll have to put the password. So this could be anything, but then this should be similar on both the firewall 3 and 2. So whatever configuration you will do after the HA is done, everything will be, reflected on the other firewall as well. All right, guys. So under this section, the first section, you will have to select this synchronization interface. You will have to select the interface that you want to use. This is going to be the peer IP. And in the next section, as I told you, this is only going to be, you will have to configure this only on the firewall which you want to be the master. So this is the peer IP again, synchronize config to the IP. This is not the firewall IP, this is the peer IP. And then you will have to keep the peer IP admin name, peer firewall admin name, what is used for the login purpose, and the password. So you don't have to do this configuration on the slave, which is 3. I'll show you the configuration on 3 as well. So first of all, this is very clear. This is the peer IP. Again, in the next section, this is the peer IP. This is the username. This is the password for PFsense 3, the other firewall. And then if you click here, it will auto select everything. And these are the information that will be synchronized between these two firewalls. So once you save that, the firewall will then start the high availability. And the protocol used here is CARP. So that is the reason why I showed you on the rule section. That is why I suggested you to allow the protocol. Let's wait for the configuration to be applied to the firewall, and then we will move ahead with the configuration. So now it is applied. So the reason why I asked you to have the rules here was because of the interaction that will happen between the two firewalls using the sync interface. And you can obviously, set this to the IP address of the sync interface. And then I guess you can have CARP. You can see here. So you can have CARP instead of anything. Source, I guess again you can have sync address, which is your interface address, or sync net. In my case, I have given it as anything to anything, in to out, out to in. So that is basically going to allow everything. So in your case, you can, have more granularity into this rule. The first rule was created for the admin access of the firewall. See here. So now at this point of time, the two firewall, okay, I didn't show you the configuration on the second firewall, which is PFsense 3. So again, this is checked. Check the last interface. This is the firewall 2, which is PFsense 2. This firewall's IP. and this section is not required, so you can skip that. Apply. Once done, we will test the synchronization of the configuration between these two firewall by creating some of the address books. So let the configuration take effect on this firewall 3. Okay, so now it is done. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go to aliases and I'm going to create an alias test2. So this should reflect on the other firewall. So you can see here it is reflecting here. So again, one more time, I'm going to show you. So you can see here the configuration is automatically getting synchronized between these two firewall after we had this HA avail sync setup. So it is taking effect immediately. And then the next step is to create the virtual IP. So in our case, like I was telling you, the WAN interfaces. So in our case, this interface is having the IP 129 on PFsense 2. On PFsense 3, it is having 130. So what we are going to do is that we are going to create a virtual IP, which is going to be .131, and this IP will be floating between these two firewalls. The same thing we will do it for this as well, VLAN 1 and here the VLAN 1. So we are going to create one more virtual IP and we are going to name it as .131, which is going to be in this range. And similarly, we'll do this for this interface as well. And whoever will become the master will be using this interface. And how you can make a firewall master? Well, there is a configuration. I'll show you the configuration. So now we are done with the high availability configuration. Now we'll have to create virtual IPs. As you can see, I already have some of the virtual IPs created already. I will show you the new creation as well for the third interface, but then I already have the two interfaces configured, virtual IPs, so I'll show you the configuration here. So you'll have to click on CARP. This is the protocol that is used for the high availability, synchronization, and all other purpose. And I've selected WAN, single address. I've given the IP address as 131. And this is going to be a password. So this has to be same on both the firewall. This is a different password, not the password that is for the admin access. It is a new password that I've created here. And then you'll have to select the VHID group. I've given it as 1, so you can select any of them here. This is the frequency for the machine to advertise the configuration. And here, okay, we are on the other firewall. So let's go back to the firewall 2. which is master, which is supposed to be master. So on master, these are the configuration required. This is the virtual IP. This is our password that I've set for the group 1. So you can set any other group as well. This is similar to the VRRP group up to 255. So similar to VRRP group, right? And this is the frequency. You can set it to any value. In my case, I have a good latency between these two firewalls, so I have selected as 1. And this value basically 0 basically means that this firewall is master. The lower value is always considered as master. This is similar to priority that we have on Juniper devices and the Cisco devices. So the lower priority will become the master. Similarly, skew value here set to 0 will make this firewall as master. And once you do that, the other firewall, if you check the configuration, it will automatically create this configuration and it'll set the skew value to 100. So like I told you, the lower value will be considered as master. And yeah, so similarly we have created the other one as well, which is for the VLAN 1. Configuration is pretty similar. You just have to do it on your master firewall, which is the PFsense 2, and it will automatically do the configuration on the other firewall, which is PFsense 3. Again, I have given it as group 1. So if you go ahead, check the configuration here, it'll show as 100. Well, there's one more interface, which is this interface, VLAN 2. So I'm going to configure that as well. So VLAN 2 is having the IP address 10.10.10.2, 10.10.10.3, and there is no configuration here. So I'm going to create a virtual IP for the VLAN 2. So I'm going to put as 4, the virtual IP. You can choose a password. You can choose any of them here. So since I want this firewall to be the master, so I've given it as 0. Once I apply this, this will then be created on the other firewall as well. Like I told you, the other firewall will have the adjustment here 100, which basically means that this firewall is supposed to be the slave and this firewall is supposed to be the master. All right, so we have all the configuration here. So if I am sitting here, and if my IP address is, if I am in VLAN, basically 1, so I'll have the IP address in 14 range. My gateway will be then the floating IP, which we are going to configure. In my case, it is going to be 14.x.x. Let us check the configuration. Okay, 31. So my gateway would be 31. And in the same way, if there is any other PC which is in VLAN 2, 10 range, so the gateway is going to be the floating IP, which is .4, not the interface IP. This is, I guess, .2. This is, I guess, .3. So this is not the gateway anymore once the firewall is in HA. All right, then, so we are done with the configuration. Now is the time to check everything. So you can check the status here. So you can see here for WAN 1, this is the group ID. You can see firewall PFsense 2 is the master. And at the same time, if you see, it is the backup. So if I do some changes, let's try to do some changes to the configuration. Let's try to make it as so I'm going to force this to a lower value or maybe 0. Or let's try to do it as this way. So you can see here for WAN 1 and VLAN 1, this firewall is the master. But then since I changed the SKU value, which is equivalent to priority, you can say it as a priority, which defines who is going to be the master. So this firewall is the backup for this particular interface. And this particular interface is configured for a virtual IP, which is this, and it will be floating between these two firewalls. And whoever becomes the master will then be using this. So now if I go back to the other firewall, you can see here this firewall is master. At the same time for WAN 1 and VLAN 1, this is backup. So how to check the high availability if any of the firewall fails? So what I'm going to do here is that I'm going to bring down one of my firewall. Or maybe what I can do here is that I can go to VLAN 2. Okay, VLAN 2 is already done. So before that, let me show you the configuration here. So VLAN 1 is master. This firewall is the master. So I'm going to bring down the VLAN 1 interface just to show you the effect. So you can see here, this is no longer master. So you can see here, this became master. So whenever there is a interface failure, the other firewall will take over this mastership for that particular interface. It is exactly similar to VRRP, which is configured on interface basis. whereas then you will have to configure VRRP on each interfaces, which has to be, you know, considered for the high availability. Let's try to bring this interface back. Just to see if there is any preemption here or not. So you can see here, there is a preemption since we have configured the SKU value under virtual IP. So definitely there is a preemption. So if you think that if there is a failover and once the primary device is active, so it is again going to take back the mastership role for that particular interface. So if you want to, make the interface as, if you want to change the role, then definitely you can do that from the virtual IP setting like this. You just have to go here and change the SKU value, so which will toggle the mastership for that particular interface. And one more thing, what I told you was the virtual IP. So since I told you that the virtual IP will then be used by the firewall which is active at that point of time. So for WAN 1, this firewall is master. So if I try to access the firewall using this IP, so I will then be redirected to the master firewall, which is the PFsense 2. So you can see here, I am redirected to the PFsense firewall 2. So the virtual IP will always be used by the firewall, which is master. All right, then I think I have covered everything about the high availability and all the scenarios. If you have any question, do leave them in the comment section. I'll try to answer that. And please do subscribe to my channel, hit the like button if you really enjoyed this video, and stay tuned for more update. Stay safe. Have a good day.